It was one of those mornings where everything felt right. The sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a soft, golden glow over the countertops. The smell of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the faint scent of pancakes, which my daughter Lily always insisted on having every Sunday. I smiled as I watched her eagerly devour her favorite breakfast, her little hands clutching the fork like it was the most important thing in the world. "Mom, can we go to the park after breakfast?" Lily asked between bites, her wide eyes filled with excitement. "Of course, sweetheart. After we finish here, we'll go play," I replied, my heart full. I loved moments like this, simple and perfect. Life was good. Or so I thought. Michael, my husband of 7 years, was in the other room, getting ready for work. He didn't share our breakfast routine anymore, not since the new project he was working on. The late nights, the constant emails and phone calls, everything seemed to have changed after he got that promotion. But I didn't mind. He was working hard for us, for our future. That's what I kept telling myself. As I watched Lily finish her pancakes, I felt a sudden wave of unease wash over me. It wasn't anything I could pinpoint. Just a feeling, an instinct that something wasn't quite right. It was as if the world had shifted slightly, like I was walking on the edge of something I couldn't see. I shook it off. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that's all I needed. The incident that changed everything happened 3 days later, during a business trip to New York. I was attending a networking event at a hotel bar, chatting with clients and colleagues when I overheard a conversation that stopped me dead in my tracks. I had always been close with Emma, my best friend since college. We'd been through thick and thin together, and I trusted her with everything. That's why I couldn't shake the knot in my stomach when I heard her voice, not from the next room but right next to me. "You know, I just don't think she has any idea," Emma said, her tone low, like she was sharing a secret. "Who?" another voice replied. "Sarah. I'm worried about her. I can't believe Michael would do this to her." My heart skipped a beat, and I forced myself to listen closer. "Emma, are you sure?" "It just doesn't seem like him," the second voice responded. I couldn't place it, but I could tell it wasn't someone I knew. "Rachel's been texting him non-stop. They've been meeting in secret. Sarah doesn't know. But I can't just sit here and pretend everything's fine." Emma's voice wavered with concern. "She's my friend, and I care about her." I couldn't breathe. The words felt like they were suffocating me, tightening around my chest. Rachel. The name repeated over and over in my mind. It was too specific to ignore. I had heard of a Rachel before, but I never thought anything of it. Michael had a lot of colleagues, a lot of contacts. But this was different. I excused myself from the conversation and slipped into the hallway, trying to catch my breath. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and texted Emma. "What are you talking about? Who is Rachel? Why didn't you tell me?" Emma's response came quickly, almost too quickly. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't know how to tell you. I just didn't want you to get hurt. But you need to be careful." That's when it hit me. I was in shock, but I could feel something deep inside stirring, a cold, sinking feeling that I couldn't shake. I arrived home that evening, trying to act normal, but everything felt different. The way Michael kissed me at the door seemed distant. The way he barely looked at me when he came home from work, always glued to his phone, was unnerving. I noticed it more now, his late nights, his constant excuse that he had to finish up work. He was never like this before. That night, after we put Lily. His phone was face down, but the screen lit up as I touched it. It was a message from an unknown number. "Looking forward to seeing you tonight. I've missed you. Rachel." The words were a slap in the face. My pulse quickened, my breath catching in my throat. Rachel. That was the same name Emma had mentioned. It couldn't be a coincidence. I felt my stomach churn as I read the message again, and again, and again, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. But there it was, undeniable. I stared at the phone, frozen. I didn't know what to feel: anger, betrayal, confusion. I had so many questions, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to confront him just yet. I put the phone back on the nightstand, my fingers trembling. The weight of the discovery hung over me like a dark cloud. I had to know the truth. But how? The next morning, everything felt different. The sun seemed dimmer, the air heavier. But I smiled, greeted Michael, kissed him goodbye as he left for work. Inside, though, I was planning. I couldn't just let this go. Not after what I had seen, what I had heard. I needed proof. The life I thought I had was slipping through my fingers, and I was about to uncover the truth in the most painful way possible. I spent the next few days in a blur, my mind consumed by 1,000 thoughts, each one sharper and more painful than the last. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on work, couldn't even look at Michael without feeling my heart twist in my chest. The text message on his phone had shattered everything I knew. The world felt like it was spinning out of control, and I was desperately clinging to whatever I could hold on to. I knew one thing for sure: I needed answers. But not just any answers. I needed proof. The doubt gnawed at me, relentless and suffocating. I had heard the whispers from Emma, and now, with this message, I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Rachel was real. She was someone he had been seeing behind my back. I needed to know everything. I needed to expose him for what he was. The house felt empty with Michael at work. I couldn't stop thinking about that text, about the secret life he had been leading. And yet, every time I tried to confront him, something held me back. The fear of what I might find, the fear of losing everything, of losing him. But I had to know. I started by digging. Social media became my tool, my window into this other world I hadn't been a part of. I couldn't just sit here and wait for the truth to fall into my lap. No, I was going to find it. I found Rachel on Instagram. Her photos were filled with carefree smiles, sunsets, vacations. Her life seemed perfect, a stark contrast to mine. A professional woman, a marketing executive at an upscale company. Michael must have met her through work. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, but I needed more. And then, as if the universe was feeding me what I needed, I found something else: Rachel's workplace. It wasn't just any company, it was a company that often organized high-end events at a well-known restaurant in the city. Michael had mentioned it a few times, but I had never thought much of it. Now, I saw the connection. The more I researched, the clearer it became that Michael and Rachel had been meeting there for weeks. I couldn't ignore it any longer. That restaurant was their secret place, a place where they could be alone. And Michael had made reservations there again, for an evening when I was supposed to be out of town for work. The pieces clicked into place. He was going to meet her there, and he didn't even know that I knew. I couldn't just confront him yet. Not until I had solid proof. I started planning my next move. I didn't want to scream, to fight, to make a scene. That wouldn't help anything. No, I needed to show him, to prove to him that I knew everything. I needed to remain calm, calculated. I wasn't going to let him see my pain or my anger, not yet. I reached out to Emma, and she could hear the determination in my voice. I wasn't going to let this slide, not after everything we had built. She didn't question me, she just agreed to help. "I'm with you, Sarah," she said. "You deserve the truth, and I'll support you no matter what." That's all I needed to hear. I reserved a table at the same restaurant, for the same evening Michael had made his reservation. I wanted to see it all unfold, to watch him without him knowing. It would be the ultimate test. I wasn't going to run after him. I wasn't going to cry or beg for answers. I was going to let him see me, and I was going to watch him squirm under the weight of his own lies. I told Michael I was going out with friends for a casual dinner. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. What he didn't know was that I had already made other plans. I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. But I didn't stop there. I searched for Rachel's husband. I found him on social media, and my stomach twisted with guilt for what I was about to do. But I needed him to see what his wife was doing. He deserved the truth too. I sent him a message, carefully worded, explaining that I had seen his wife with my husband multiple times. I didn't go into too much detail, but I told him we needed to talk. I arranged to meet him at the restaurant, where we could confront them both. I had no idea how John would react, but I knew that this was the right thing to do. If Michael was going to face the consequences of his actions, then so was Rachel. She couldn't get away with this either. As the night approached, I felt a mix of emotions. My heart raced with anticipation, but I couldn't shake the nervousness in my stomach. What if things didn't go the way I planned? What if Michael denied everything, blamed me for snooping? What if Rachel was innocent? I shook my head, trying to push the doubts away. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I wasn't doing this to hurt anyone. I was doing it to show Michael that I knew the truth. To make him face what he had done. I was tired of pretending. Tired of being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, when my whole world was falling apart beneath me. Tonight, I would make him face it. I would make him face me. As I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my coat before heading out the door, I felt a surge of determination. I wasn't the same woman who had walked into this marriage 7 years ago. No, I was stronger now. Stronger than I ever thought I could be. And tonight, I would show Michael just how strong I was. The restaurant was quieter than I expected, the soft hum of distant conversations blending with the clink of glasses and the faint jazz music playing in the background. I arrived early, of course. I needed to have everything in place, to make sure I had control of the situation. But deep down, my stomach was in knots. I had a plan, and I wasn't going to back down now. The table I had reserved was perfect, right next to the one Michael and Rachel would be seated at. I could see them, but they couldn't see me. And I wasn't just here to observe. I wasn't just here to watch my world crumble in front of me. No. I was here to take action. I glanced at the door, waiting for them to arrive. It felt like an eternity, but then, finally, I saw Michael step through the entrance. He looked just the same as he always did, handsome, confident, his smile genuine as he greeted the hostess. The only difference was the woman beside him. Rachel. She was taller than me, thinner, with long, straight brown hair that fell perfectly around her shoulders. She looked like someone straight out of a magazine, effortlessly beautiful, like she belonged in a world I didn't. As they walked past my table, I could feel the tension in my chest tighten. Michael didn't even look in my direction, too absorbed in Rachel's laughter. I watched them sit down, the very picture of a couple in love, and I couldn't stop myself from feeling the sharp sting of betrayal. Every smile, every laugh between them was like a slap in the face. And the worst part? He looked so at ease, so comfortable. It was as if he had forgotten everything, forgotten me, forgotten our life together. I was just the woman who stood in the background, playing the part of the dutiful wife while he carried on behind my back. I forced myself to stay calm, to not let my anger show. But inside, I was seething. Rachel and Michael were talking in low voices, the distance between us too far to hear the specifics, but their body language was enough. He leaned in a little too close, his hand brushing hers across the table. She smiled at him in a way that made my stomach twist. The way they looked at each other, it wasn't just a flirtation. It was something deeper. They had history. They had something I didn't have with him anymore. I looked at John, Rachel's husband, seated across from me. His eyes were fixed on the couple too, and I could see the confusion, the hurt, building on his face. He didn't speak, just sat there, his jaw clenched, his fists tightening on the table. I could feel his pain. He didn't know everything yet, but he was about to. I tried to breathe, tried to control the rage building inside me. This wasn't about him. This was about Michael. I felt the weight of every second pass as I sat there, watching them, my heart breaking with each passing minute. Michael was oblivious. Rachel was oblivious. But I wasn't. I knew the truth, and now I was going to make them face it. The moment arrived. It felt like time slowed down as I stood from my table, the cool air of the restaurant brushing against my skin. My legs were shaky, but I walked steadily, determined. I could feel John's eyes on me as I approached their table, my heart pounding in my chest. I saw the surprise in Michael's eyes the moment he looked up. His smile faltered, then disappeared altogether when he saw me. His face drained of color. He didn't know what to say. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I was done with all the games, done with the pretending. I was here to make him face what he had done. Having a good dinner? I asked calmly, my voice steady, but inside I felt like I was screaming. It's nice to enjoy a quiet evening with someone you care about, isn't it? Michael stammered, his eyes darting nervously between me and Rachel. He didn't even know how to react. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. But there was no time for him to explain. There was no more pretending. Rachel's face was a mixture of shock and confusion. She didn't know what to say either. What? What is this? She asked, her voice shaking, but there was a tinge of guilt in it. John, sitting silently beside me, finally spoke up. You know exactly what this is, Rachel, he said, his voice low but steady. You think you can get away with this? That nobody would find out. I watched Rachel's face change. The mask she had been wearing started to slip. Her confident demeanor faltered, and I saw the real her, the woman who had been lying, the woman who had been sneaking around behind her husband's back. Michael, still flustered, tried to deflect, but I wasn't having it anymore. I've seen enough, Michael, I said, my voice shaking with the anger I had been holding back. You and Rachel, behind my back, behind John's back, pretending like nothing was happening. Well, I know everything now. Every text, every lie. Michael opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. I wasn't going to let him lie to me again. You think I don't know, Michael? You think I didn't see the messages, the late nights, the excuses? You think I wouldn't find out about Rachel? Well, I did. And now, here we are. I could see the guilt start to sink in on his face. His eyes shifted to Rachel, but he couldn't even look me in the eye anymore. The man who had been my husband for 7 years, my partner, my love, was now nothing more than a stranger to me. Rachel's face was pale. She looked down at her plate, unable to meet anyone's gaze. The guilt was heavy in the air, suffocating. And Michael, despite his attempts to apologize, could barely find the words. I'm sorry, Sarah, Michael mumbled, his voice barely audible, his face crimson with shame. I didn't let him finish. I wasn't going to sit here and listen to his hollow apologies. The damage was done. He had already betrayed me. Apologies are empty now, Michael, I said, my voice cold and final. The damage is done. I turned and walked away from the table, the weight of the situation crashing down on me. But as I did, I felt a small sliver of relief. I had faced the truth. I had exposed it all. And now, for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I could breathe again. But as I walked out of the restaurant, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The air felt thick, suffocating even, as I walked out of the restaurant. My body moved on autopilot, my legs carrying me farther from the confrontation, farther from the mess that had been my marriage, but my mind couldn't escape. The reality of what had just happened hit me in waves. The clink of glasses, the muted voices behind me, all of it seemed so far away now. Michael's face, the look of guilt and shame, it was seared into my mind. But it wasn't just his face that haunted me, it was the weight of his betrayal. I walked aimlessly down the sidewalk, every step feeling heavier than the last. My fingers gripped the strap of my bag, knuckles white with the effort to hold myself together. The tears that threatened to spill from my eyes felt like they would burn, but I kept them at bay. I couldn't cry, not yet. I had to keep moving forward. I had to take control of the pieces of my life that still lay scattered around me. When I finally stopped, I realized I had walked blocks away from the restaurant. The bright city lights blurred, mixing with the cold night air. I didn't even know where I was anymore. I just needed space, a moment to breathe and collect myself. My heart still raced from the confrontation, and it didn't feel real, none of it did. I sat on a bench by a small park, the quiet of the evening settling in around me. It felt like the world had paused for a brief moment, waiting for me to catch up. I glanced at my phone. There was a message from John. "Thank you, Sarah. I don't know how to thank you for what you did tonight. It's been eating at me for so long. I don't know what comes next, but I needed to know the truth. I owe you that." I stared at the message, the words sinking into me slowly. John. He was as much a victim in this as I was, yet I felt a pang of something else, something bittersweet. Sympathy, maybe. I couldn't deny that I felt for him. He hadn't deserved this any more than I had. Then there was Michael. His apology, so empty and desperate, echoed in my mind. The way he looked at me, like a man caught in a lie too big to fix. There was nothing left of him in that moment. Not the man I had married, not the man who once held my hand and told me we were invincible together. He had shattered that illusion, piece by piece, until nothing remained but the broken fragments of what we used to be. I looked up at the city lights, the vastness of everything around me. I felt small, insignificant, but I also felt something else, something growing inside me. A sense of power. I had faced the truth tonight, in the coldest way possible, but I had done it. I had walked into the storm, and I hadn't broken. Eventually, I made my way home, my feet dragging with the weight of what awaited me. The house was silent when I entered, empty except for the shadows in the corners of the living room. Lily's room was quiet too, her soft breathing a comforting sound as I peeked in. My daughter, the one person who could always make me smile, was asleep, oblivious to the chaos that had just unfolded in her world. I closed the door softly, my hand lingering on the doorknob as I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My thoughts were racing, spinning out of control. I needed to face Michael. I couldn't keep running from the truth. But I wasn't sure I was ready. Not yet. The next morning, Michael came home earlier than usual, his face drawn, his eyes red. He hadn't slept much, I could tell. I wasn't surprised. He was probably wrestling with his guilt, trying to figure out what he could say to make things right. But there was nothing he could say that would change anything. "Sarah," he started, his voice hoarse. He seemed unsure of where to begin, like he had rehearsed his apology but didn't know if it would be enough. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. You have to believe me, it wasn't like that. I made a huge mistake, and I know I've hurt you, hurt us. I didn't look at him. Instead, I focused on the cup of coffee in my hands, the warm steam rising up in front of me. The sound of his voice, the desperation in it, only made my heart ache more. But I couldn't let him see that. I couldn't let him see how much this hurt, how much it broke me. "You've hurt me, Michael," I said quietly, my voice steady but cold. "But I'm not sure you even understand what you've done. You've lied to me for months, maybe longer. You've been living a double life, and I had to find out from someone else. Not from you. Not from the man I thought I knew." I looked at him then, finally meeting his gaze. His face crumpled with guilt, but it wasn't enough. His regret wasn't going to fix this. "I don't know how to make this right," he said, his voice trembling. "I never meant for this to happen. I love you, Sarah. I do. Please don't leave me. I can fix this." I shook my head, the anger I had been suppressing bubbling to the surface. "You don't get it, do you? It's not about fixing this. It's about trust. It's about respect. And you broke both." I stood up, my hands shaking as I set the coffee cup down on the counter. I needed to leave. I couldn't stand to be in the same room with him any longer. The pain, the anger, the disbelief, I couldn't carry it anymore. "I'm not sure I can forgive you, Michael," I said quietly, my voice breaking. "And I don't think I want to try anymore." He didn't say anything. He just stood there, frozen, his face pale and stricken. But there was no apology, no explanation that could change what had already happened. The damage was done, and it couldn't be undone. I walked out of the room without looking back, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on my chest. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was making a choice for myself. I was taking control of my own life, my own future. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the unknown. Later that night, after the silence between Michael and I had settled into a heavy stillness, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the woman I barely recognized. Her eyes were tired, filled with the echoes of heartbreak, but there was strength in them now, a fire I hadn't seen before. "I'll be okay," I whispered to myself, my voice steady and sure. "I'm stronger than this." It wasn't just a promise to Michael. It was a promise to myself. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let this define me. I was going to rebuild, piece by piece, and find my own way. For me. For Lily. And for the woman I had yet to become. The next few weeks were a blur of emotions, an overwhelming tide of anger, hurt, and, strangely enough, relief. I'd faced the truth, brutal and raw, and somehow, I was still standing. But standing was different now. I wasn't just existing anymore, I was rebuilding. Every step I took felt like I was reconstructing the very foundation of my life, brick by brick, after it had been torn down by Michael's betrayal. Michael and I rarely spoke. What was there to say? He had apologized, begged for forgiveness, and promised to change. But the truth was, nothing he said could erase what had happened. I couldn't unhear the words he had spoken to Rachel. I couldn't unsee the way he had looked at her, the way they had shared moments that should have been ours. And more than that, I couldn't unfeel the way he had made me doubt myself, doubt our entire life together. There were moments, of course, when I missed him. I missed the man I thought he was, the man I married. But that man was gone, buried beneath layers of lies and deceit. And I had no choice but to let him go. Lily was the one constant in all of this. Her sweet smile, her innocent laugh, her unshakable belief in me, she was the reason I pushed through every single day. I didn't want her to see the wreckage of what Michael and I had become. I didn't want her to feel the tension, the weight of the betrayal that hung between us. One afternoon, as we sat together on the living room floor, I watched her color in her book, humming to herself. It was one of those rare moments of peace, where the world outside could be forgotten, and it was just us. I knew I had to be strong for her, for the future I still wanted to give her. The pain of the betrayal, though still sharp, was beginning to fade, replaced by something stronger, an understanding that I could survive this. More than survive, I could thrive. I could create a life for us that was whole again, one where we were free of the chains that had bound me to a man who no longer deserved me. Michael tried to reach out to me several times. At first, I had ignored his calls, his texts. He didn't deserve an explanation, and he certainly didn't deserve my forgiveness, not yet. I had to protect myself before I could think about anything else. But as time passed, the messages grew desperate. He sent long, heartfelt texts, begging me to listen, telling me how he was working on himself, how much he regretted everything. It was clear that he was lost in the realization of what he had thrown away. But that was his journey to make, not mine. I had made mine the moment I decided to let go of the life we had built together. One evening, when the house was quiet and Lily had gone to bed, I sat down with my phone. I had to respond to Michael, if only to make it clear that I had moved on. I wasn't going to carry the weight of this for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to let him keep me in the past. I typed the message, my fingers shaking slightly as I pressed the keys. I don't hate you, Michael. But I can't go back. You broke something inside me that can't be fixed. I hope you find what you're looking for. But I need to focus on myself and Lily now. I wish you well. The words felt final, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of peace. I pressed send, and with that, I knew it was over. Not just the marriage, but the years of holding on to something that wasn't real anymore. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding. I enrolled Lily in a new extracurricular activity, something that would give her joy, a fresh start for both of us. I took time for myself too, time to reflect, to heal, and to remember who I was before all of this began. I started small. Yoga classes, long walks in the park, reading books I had long forgotten about. It wasn't about escaping the pain, it was about embracing the person I was becoming. The person I needed to be. And with each passing day, I felt stronger. I also reached out to old friends, ones I had distanced myself from over the years. I realized I had been so focused on my marriage, on making it work, that I had forgotten how to nurture the relationships that truly mattered. They welcomed me back with open arms, reminding me that I was not alone, that I had people who cared about me, people who had always been there, even when I couldn't see them. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table with Lily, the world outside feeling so much quieter than it had in months, I realized something. It wasn't just the betrayal that had broken me, it was my own unwillingness to see it for what it was. I had put my worth in Michael's love, in his approval. I had sacrificed parts of myself to make our marriage work, and when it fell apart, I lost sight of who I truly was. But now, I was finding her again. The woman who was strong, independent, and capable of standing on her own 2 feet. The woman who didn't need anyone to validate her worth. Lily looked up from her drawing, her eyes filled with warmth and love. "Mom," she said softly, "are we going to be okay?" I smiled, my heart swelling with love for this little girl who had been my rock throughout all of this. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine." And I believed it. For the first time in a long time, I believed it.